The sponsor of today's podcast episode is Surfshark. Now let's talk about your online protection because quite frankly, you could use some. Websites, hackers and various third parties track your online activity all the way across the internet. And even your own internet provider can spy on your internet activity and then sell that data to third parties. But thankfully you can avoid all that with a VPN. Essentially, it hides your location and makes it difficult to identify you from a crowd of users. Think of a VPN as a safety net from any bad guys trying to target you. And it doesn't end there. You know those pop-ups that say unavailable in your location? Well, you can forget all about these if you have a VPN. Simply switch your virtual location and access any content, web or app that's blocked in your country. So let's say you're the type of person who likes to have a safety net for your safety net. Well, Surfshark has your back too. You can add even more protection by adding a data leak detection system called Surfshark Alert. And they also have antivirus and a private search engine called Surfshark Search. So try Surfshark risk-free for a 30-day money-back guarantee. And to get Surfshark VPN, just simply go to surfshark.deals/TTD, enter the promo code TTD for 83% off and an additional 3 months free. But now, on with today's show. Today, I've invited Sendi Young from Ripple to explore Ripple's momentum in the market, some of the trends that she's seen in digital payments, crypto adoption, and financial regulation in this space. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to the UK, where you can join me and Sendi in conversation. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Thank you very much, Neil. Thanks for having me on the show and hello to all the listeners. So I'm Sendi Young. I'm Ripple's Managing Director for Europe based in London, and I oversee our strategy and business growth across the continent, specifically focused on RippleNet, which is essentially best known for the ODL, so on-demand liquidity solution, which essentially leverages crypto, specifically digital assets, XRP, to allow enterprises to send money across the borders in a more sort of transparent, low cost and efficient and instant way. We've really sort of expanded from cross-border payments to a platform of more tokenized services, to allow crypto capabilities for enterprises to really help prepare them for a more crypto-enabled future. And our focus has really been very much from the beginning focused on real world use cases around crypto and blockchain, right? From the onset, we've always focused on developing and building solutions that will move and tokenize value, not so much focused on these hypes and speculation and ups and downs, but really building for the long term. And it's a really, exciting time at the moment to be at the forefront of this industry with Ripple and demonstrating how crypto can help enterprises, banks, fintechs, SMEs, lots of different parties here, how we can help them address a number of global liquidity challenges to scale faster and more efficiently.
Well, there's so much we've got to talk about today because it is an incredibly exciting space. But before we do, I want to take you way back before the world of crypto and ask that you share your origin story, where your passion for technology came from, what lit the spark, how those worlds for finance and technology collided for you. Or should I say, what put you on this path that you're on right now?
Yeah, happy to. Yeah, it's been certainly an interesting journey. So I grew up in Turkey in the 80s, 90s, where I really developed a fascination with macroeconomics because, when I was growing, there was constant stories about inflation and people's wealth disappearing overnight and being able to, afford food prices, etc. There's been so many cycles of sort of economic boom followed quickly by bust. So literally a career in financial services economics felt like a natural path for me. I spent my early adulthood in the US. I studied economics at Brown University in Rhode Island, interned at Morgan Stanley in New York, and then started my early career in economics consulting at Nero, which was one of the leading firms at the time. And then I moved into a more boutique consulting firm to help scale their international business. And then it was there really I realized that I wanted to lead a business. So I joined an MBA program at Harvard Business School. And then out of the business school, I joined HSBC based out of London. And that was my first experience really with global payments, how it works, its challenges, innovation. And from then on, I knew I wanted to be part of this sweeping digital change across the financial services industry. Following HSBC, I spent a few years in management consulting with Alex Partners, and then subsequently joined MasterCard, which is where I spent the last sort of 5 years just before joining Ripple about 8 months ago. At MasterCard, I did a number of different things, primarily focused on driving the growth of the data and services business. And particularly in the latter years, I was helping banks adopt real-time payments, open banking, artificial intelligence, a lot of the sort of emerging technologies, and worked very closely with the Fintech ecosystem. So essentially, HSBC gave me this opportunity to dip my toes in the global payments, whereas MasterCard allowed me to really discover my passion with this cross-section of technology and payments. And I realized, I was at the right place at the right time. We're going through this incredible transformation in finance, right, driven by technology. And I'm really super excited to be at the forefront of that.
Fantastic. And it was that path that led you to Ripple. And just to get everyone listening on the same page, because I understand there'll be a lot of people listening that are in the crypto industry and others that will be nervously watching on the outside. So can you tell the listeners a little bit more about how you enable anyone to send money globally using the power of blockchain technology? And also, what makes you guys different from other solutions out there?
Yeah. So, Ripple was really the first crypto or blockchain company with real customers using its products commercially. And today, Ripple works with hundreds of institutions globally, and it ranges really from innovative startups to more established banks. And initially, we built Ripple with this primary focus of solving the big cross-border payments problem, right? It's the $130 trillion market. And the legacy method of moving funds across the borders, primarily with SWIFT and correspondent banking, is really antiquated and inefficient. It's really been built with the pre-internet technology and infrastructure, and it has a lot of challenges. Right, it's slow, costly, opaque. It's still, despite there's been a lot of innovation, but despite that, it still takes about 3 days, costs $7 to send, about $100 across borders, and these costs are typically passed on to consumers. And this model also requires financial institutions to pre-fund accounts in different countries, different currencies, which causes around $10 trillion basically trapped, or capital trapped globally. A lot of inefficiency for the economy overall, and this drives up costs and inhibits growth essentially. So on the other hand, essentially with RippleNet, what we have done is we've leveraged the distributed ledger technology to offer a settlement within seconds, a failure rate that is nearly zero, and fees that are about 90% less per transaction than the status quo. And now we're expanding this actually with more enterprise crypto services by leveraging basically what we've built for on-demand liquidity for RippleNet. Late last year, it's been in the news that we've introduced Liquidity Hub, which is essentially a new product that will help enterprises easily and efficiently source a number of digital assets from the broader crypto markets. We've announced our first partner, CoinMe, and we expect a more generally available version later this year.
Fantastic. And I'm quite conscious that we'll have many people listening. When they hear the name Ripple, they might think of the lawsuit with SEC. And when others just hear the word crypto, they'll think about governments in everywhere from Russia to the US clamping down. And I know you can't comment too much on some of this, but is there anything you can say about it and the impact that the uncertainty is having across that industry?
Yeah, for those that may not be sort of fully aware with the whole sort of challenges, it really boils down to one single, legal question, and particularly in the US, right? And that question is whether or not XRP, the digital asset, is an investment contract under the US securities law. XRP is a currency. A lot of the major branches of the US government have already determined that to be the case. And when you look outside the US, there's really not one country around the world that has classified XRP as a security. So, SEC is at the moment pursuing essentially this approach of regulation by enforcement, where a lot of other places, like UK and Europe, where we see more regulation, more progressive regulation that is about developing clear laws, rules, frameworks to allow innovation to happen. And this lack of regulatory clarity essentially is hindering innovation and growth, honestly, across the US. And we need more of that clarity, which we have in other parts of the world.
Absolutely. And there has been a lot of uncertainty in the industry, but I always like to look through the lens of optimism in technology and look to where we're heading in the future. So from someone that's having a lot of conversations with your clients and customers all over the world, what positive trends are you seeing in digital payments, crypto adoption and financial regulation in the space? Because a lot of people think regulation's bad, but actually I think it's a good thing and it brings more people into the space. But what are you seeing?
Yeah, I actually agree with you on that point around regulation. So I think historically the conversation around crypto has been sort of very, when I say historically in the last couple of years, it's been very much more around like, is it going to be mainstream? When does it have enough potential? But now I started seeing this sort of back sort of last year, and I think we'll see more of it in 2022. The dialogue is more about the real life use cases, the benefits for both organizations and individuals. And I think everyone is now asking more, how do I get into it versus if and when? And the maturing of these perceptions based on experiences, I believe is increasing the adoption of blockchain and crypto solutions by financial institutions and even, broader other industries, but, I'm not going to go into that. Yeah. I think we've seen a lot, for example, end of last year, right? So blue chip names like Visa, Goldman, Monzo, many others there, they've announced a lot of expansion into crypto to diversify their services, their portfolios. And this growing adoption essentially is really exciting to me. And I think especially, being here at Ripple, we're in a really strong position to support these organizations in their journey toward into crypto, to integrate this new technology. Especially with what I mentioned with Liquidity Hub that we launched last November, we're essentially helping financial institutions to offer their customers the ability to buy, sell, and hold digital assets at the best possible prices. And I expect to see this adoption, this trend, this sort of normalization to continue in 2022 I expect to see more partnership with traditional financial services and crypto providers, which will lead to more successful implementations of crypto-enabled services. And that will come more and more into life, both on the retail and institutional side.
So do you think it really is important to encourage competition and regulation in the market to build that strong fintech hub that will bring that adoption that the industry needs?
Absolutely. I think, if we look at Europe, is an important fintech hub. It's been growing fast. Investments been around in 2021, around 20 billion euros. But you're right. This trajectory, right? It doesn't just happen on its own. It's been dependent on a clear, mature regulatory environment that fosters competition and innovation. And I think in the crypto space as well, regulation, I think, plays a really important role in calming this hype around this emerging technology and getting people giving the peace of mind and safety and security to then focus more on the real world utility. I think this increased regulation that we're seeing, pretty much everywhere at different extents, I think will help normalize the use of crypto in financial services, and it will transform liquidity in the cross-border payment space as well, and will really foster more investor trust. I think particularly if you look at Europe, I've definitely got my eyes on the Europe's MiCA, the Markets in Crypto Assets legislation framework, which I think will be really important and to enable us this sort of harmonization of the industry regulations across Europe, creating this sort of level playing field and a consistency to do business across Europe in the crypto space.
And I know a lot of people listening, when they hear things like fintech, blockchain and crypto, it feels almost alien to them. One of the things I try and do on this Daily Tech podcast is try and demystify it and put it in a language that everyone can understand. So just to bring to life what we're talking about here, can you tell the listeners a little bit more about what a favourable ecosystem for fintech looks like, and maybe share a few examples of how, especially here in the UK, we seem to be leading the way somewhat?
Yeah, I think so. To build this sort of favorable ecosystem for fintechs to thrive, I think it's a very fine balance, right? With governments and regulators, they need to sort of work closely with the industry to find this balance of promoting innovation and effective competition while at the same time protecting investors and consumers. And to your point before, right, I don't think regulation is bad. I don't think fintechs should see regulations as a restriction. On the other hand, if done right, it can be an enabler. And I think we are seeing this in the UK, right? It's a very, very good example. I think UK's Financial Conduct Authority was, for example, the first in the world to launch a regulatory sandbox for companies to test their products before launch. And this set an amazing precedence around the world. There's so many other regulators who've adopted this approach. It's really helped foster innovation, bring industry regulators closer together. We've really paved the way in that area. I think in the UK, there's also, regulation is used also to encourage competition, which has really enabled this fintech boom to happen as well. Again, if we look at open banking, for example, right? Again, UK has been leading globally, introducing the open banking regulation in 2018. Then Europe was the sort of PSD2 in slightly a couple of months later. And it really sparked a new innovation to basically by requiring banks to provide more access to customer data and funds with obviously with the customer's consent. It allowed new companies to come into the play, new services, and all of which is increasing value to customers, giving customers more choice, better prices, more tailored services, better experience essentially. And this in turn also enables financial services, right, to access more information-rich data in a way that was, never possible before, and create all of this sort of new services and better customer experiences. I think in the UK, particularly, we've seen, this has been prevalent. We've seen the, likes of Monzo, Asimo, Starling Bank, Revolut expand footprints beyond Europe to grow their customer base and offer much, broader range of services to become really competitive players just beyond the UK.
And what about Ripple and the kind of momentum in the market that you're enjoying now? Where do you see things heading for 2022? Is there anything you can tell me about your focus this year and how you see this year panning out?
Yeah, before jumping into this year, last year, I'm really pleased to say it's been an amazing, incredible year for Ripple. We've, once again saw Ripple stand as a market leader in blockchain and crypto solutions, enterprise solutions. We've seen our payments volume run rate sort of exceeding $10 billion, more than doubling from previous year. Similar transaction numbers are more than doubling. Our on-demand liquidity sort of solution, which has been in about sort of 3-4 markets in 2020, is now available in 22 markets. And a lot of this growth has been, enabled by a number of partnerships we've entered over the last years. For example, institutions like People in the Middle East, and we've been able to expand our presence essentially in the Middle East, North Africa region with SBI Remit in Japan. And then the other sort of, I would say, part of our success, to the discussion we had before around regulators, right? Like we have been from the beginning really very proactive working with the entire ecosystem, right? Regulators, governments, central banks, not against them, which has, I think, also catalyzed our growth and really positioned us really well as regulators started taking a close look at the space. So moving into 2020, I'm super, super excited. I think we'll see many more markets around the world becoming more open to the benefits of crypto and more adoption across the industry, but also with Ripple solutions. We are seeing Europe very recently superseding East Asia as the world's largest market for DeFi adoption. I think it's about $1 trillion worth of crypto now being received in Europe, which is incredible, right? Because usually sort of East Asia has been the leading market. And I'm really looking forward to how we can keep up this momentum rolling and really grow this as we head into 2022 and continue to put UK, Europe on this map of the sort of new finance world.
And before you came on the podcast today, I was doing a bit of research on you guys. Now, one of the things that stood out as well is how Ripple is supporting a next generation of talent in finance with initiatives, including a university blockchain research initiative in partnership with some of the world's leading universities. Can you expand on that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're really excited to create this, more robust and valuable blockchain ecosystem, right? And obviously talent is such a, core part of this. There's increasing demand in the space. And I think, it's sometimes a struggle, to keep up with that, with the talent availability and development and growth of that. So our university blockchain research initiative, so UBRI at Ripple, it's essentially a university partnership program. And we fund financial technology curriculum development, research, technical projects, entrepreneurship, student activities across universities. I mean, traditionally, I guess, obviously when we look at innovation and a lot of new big technological advancements have emerged from academia. So I think by supporting, this kind of initiatives, supporting new curriculum, supporting research, supporting, this kind of technical problem solving and knowledge sharing, Ubri essentially is leading the fintech workforce of the future with this initiative. We also hope to really inspire students, right? Part of it is education, but, part of it is also bringing that optimism and energy and inspiration and showing the potential. So I think, this is a very important part of this partnership. We're including, people with diverse backgrounds, experiences to become part of this workforce future with blockchain, distributed computing, banking, fintech. I think in Europe, there's need to nurture further fintech talent and address more and more these sort of technical skill gaps, particularly in blockchain and crypto. So, we have partnerships, again, more specifically on this part of the world with University College London here, also Reykjavik University in Iceland and ETH Zurich to advance some of these goals I mentioned.
Fantastic. Well, we began the podcast today talking about your origin story and what put you on this path. But as we come full circle now, I'm going to ask you if there was a song, piece of music, movie, or a book that has inspired you or helped you in your career. Can you share your choice and a story behind it and possibly leave the listeners on an inspirational note today?
Sure. I'll go with a book. So Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People really has inspired me many times. And I think, in a nutshell, it is an all-time bestseller. And I think a lot of people have read it. But for those who may not have, it's essentially lays out this framework for achieving lifelong personal, professional growth in a very efficient way. And essentially, you go from with these 7 habits, go from dependence to independence and interdependence. And essentially, it's all about taking charge of yourself, your life in all aspects, and then learning how to work best with others to create these win-win outcomes and lead and inspire, etc. They're very, very basic principles, but very, very powerful, I think, and very hard to apply, I think, in their best way. What I find really incredible, the sort of the depth of understanding of the human nature, right? The first time I read it, I was really very skeptical. I thought it was one of these books that would just tell me to, wake up at 5 a.m. and do my exercise, etc. But it's really, there's a lot of psychology about human nature in there. And I think related to that, it's a book written in, I think, 1989 or so. And it's incredible how relevant it is today. And I think it's probably more relevant today than ever before when we are, even though the world has been changing a lot since then, right? A lot more global, a lot more digitized, a lot more on demand. Yet we're really struggling in terms of, organizing our lives, our time to create high value rather than just, keeping busy with a lot of things. So I really read it every few years. I find something very different in it and apply different aspects of it. And I think, I find it very inspirational to the extent that I've got a kid's version of it. And I read that to my 2 boys, 4 and 7-year-olds, because I think the principles there are not just for career, but really how you manage your life.
That's a great choice, and I'll add that to our Amazon wish list so other listeners can nip in and listen or read that, depending on their preference. And before I let you go, though, for anyone wanting to find out more information about Ripple, anything we talked about today, or maybe even contact your team if it's a potential customer, what's the best way?
Best way of doing that is reaching out to our website. There'll be ability to contact us through there. It's ripple.com.
Fantastic. I'll add ripple.com to the show notes again so people can find it nice and easily. And the UK and European fintech space has been such a big boom in recent years, and there has been an ongoing conversation since you started out in the industry. I think it was, 15 years ago? But in particular, Europe has seen huge growth. And I think in the first half of 2021 alone, fintech investment in the region has reached 39.1 billion. It's an incredibly exciting space. Yes, there is a bit of uncertainty, but there's a lot of optimism and a lot to be looking forward to. But thank you so much for taking the time to demystify this technology and also share your story with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Neil. Appreciate it.
I just love chatting with Sendi today, and I hope we are able to get her back on later this year, because I've got a feeling that this scene is just going to continue to explode again very soon. But hey, what do I know? I haven't got my virtual crystal ball, so over to you. I'd love to know what you're hearing and seeing in the industry, what your predictions are for the future. And if you've got a story to share or expertise you want to share, if you want to come on here and spend 30 minutes with me, there's an open invitation. So as always, email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn @NeilCHughes, and my website is techblogwriter.co.uk if you want to browse through 2,000 interviews or consider working with me. But I'm conscious that me talking into your ears every day is probably more than enough for most of you. So I thank you for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow. But until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.